bringing fresh perspectives and inspiring change across Africa as well as the US and globally. I would like to first start off by saying thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today, Barbara.
Thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. And just for the sake of time, we wanted to dive right in if you're ready, okay?
Yes, I am. Let's do this.
Okay, so let's just start off. Can you please tell us a little about yourself and what you do, who you are, and where you're from?
Alrighty. My name is Babra Dadirai Ngwena. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I am a Zimbabwean American based here in the US, in Indiana. In fact, when I came almost 23 years ago, we settled in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and fell in love with it. But I've had the opportunity to travel around as well. So I own two businesses. One we just recently launched, right? The first one is Biz Global Tourism, and I also utilize the name Biz Global Group because we do a lot of things in that space. So basically, with Biz Global Group, what we do is we connect businesses from the continent of Africa and other continents as well, where we actually have had people reaching out to us from India, as well as some Asian countries as well. So we connect businesses to investors and other business partnerships here in the US. And the newest to the family of the businesses that I own is Prestige Global Lending. This came by, a partner of mine. We had been working together for a very long time in terms of wanting to find ways that would make it easier for women on the continent of Africa as well as India, who we are also partnering with. How can they access very low amounts of lending monies, as low as $50? Because we realize a lot of times banks don't provide these kinds of loans, and we figured, okay, why don't we provide this service as part of that whole support for small and medium businesses that are wanting to just expand, but with our main focus towards women and young people in that space.
Oh, that's excellent, Barbara. And that's one of the things that I know that really drives you, and what I understand about you is that your passion in helping women thrive and really do great things across the globe. I do want to ask the question, what can you tell us about your life growing up in Zimbabwe?
Yes. So I grew up in a family of six. So I have one brother who comes right after me, and all of us, we are not in Zimbabwe. And this is something that we inherited from our grandfather, from my mother's side of the family, right? I was born and raised in Harare, which is the capital city. So I'm your city child, afraid of bugs and all that kind of stuff. But my father, on the other hand, grew up in the rural areas, but he instilled in us the love of nature, the love of land, the love of all these things that you typically don't see when you are, born and raised in the city. But going back to my grandfather, Elia Chirashe, and I'm honoring him today because of this. Uh, he arrived in Zimbabwe, but we didn't know exactly his country of origin. But one thing that he would always instill in us was, you have to see the world. You have to see the world. There's a world out there. And so him and my grandmother, they had 13 children between them. And I kid you not, Charles, when I tell you, of all his children, right, all of us, my cousins, we are all over the world, right? Due to him inspiring us. So we grew up I didn't grow up rich, neither was I poor. But one thing we grew up around was family, understanding to give back. And my mom was a big influence in always focusing to say, always think of somebody else, not yourself, especially when you're able to eat, you have food on the table. And there were days when you would come home, the minute you saw the gate open, when you arrived at home and there were people on the yard, you knew you were not going to have your lunch, because she had this habit of feeding anyone who came to the door. And that is a combination of my grandfather wanting us to see the world and understand the world in a much bigger way, and also my mom inspiring the idea of giving back. And then of course my dad being that gentle voice in the background, in really kind of like guiding and molding who I've become as a person. So I grew up in an environment where giving back was not something that you think about or have to process, or like it's an aha moment. It was just a way of life. So that is what has inspired the two businesses. When I talk about Biz Global, when I see what we are doing with the prestige global lending, is exactly the same concept. Really wanting people to feel empowered, to feel economically ready, to challenge the world in the spaces they are in, and be able to live decent lives without having to worry about what tomorrow brings.
Oh, that's great, Barbara. Thank you for sharing that. What are some of the greatest needs for the people of Zimbabwe that you've discovered?
Yes, that's a great question, Charles. 2 years ago, I did a trade mission to Southern Africa. And so we did South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and I believe Congo, because I didn't go all the way to Congo. But when I went there, I saw this resilience to a very harsh economic environment. And when I say harsh, I mean in terms of not having access, to finances. And you see these young people who are such entrepreneurs, who are educated as well, by the way, right? Academically smart, but really not getting the resources that they need to move, whatever they're doing, whether it's an entrepreneurial venture they've taken on, or even just academics as well. So an economy that, because of our past sanctions that we had, so a lot of our young people, a lot of unemployment, and I also saw a lot of opportunities that were also available in that space. So I figured to myself, okay, if we have this harsh economy, if we have the smarts that we have, that I'm seeing, if I'm seeing all this creativity, how can we make our mark as well as part of that whole ecosystem? So the need is really the idea of getting resources into the country, whether they're coming in through investment or they're coming in through partnering, or even just creating opportunities for employment. That's really the largest and biggest challenges that, the challenges that I actually met with and saw and observed, and really had conversations around that. Infrastructure, continuing to build on that, because the opportunities are there. So those are some of a few of the many challenges that I observed, but those are my topical ones, because I believe we as we invest into those spaces, we can be able to really bridge that gap, as we put resources on the ground.
Well, that is great, Barbara. And we want to make sure that our audience is well aware that there are those opportunities to really start considering and looking at Zimbabwe from a standpoint of growth and opportunity and innovation. Um, can you tell me what projects you're focused on today?
Okay. So Biz Global, we are diverse in the in the industries that we touch, right? But lately, I've been focusing a lot on green energy, energy in general, solar energy, hydro, any green energy that you can think of. Because Africa in general, and Zimbabwe specifically, we used to be the breadbasket of Africa, because we produced more. We are landlocked, even though we are landlocked, but our weather was very mild, right? So we have an abundance of sunshine. So that means also for those people who want to invest in energy, you have the opportunity to do that, right? There are structures in place in terms of the ministries that you work with. I'm currently doing that right now. So energy, agriculture, and manufacturing, and also aerospace. As much as people don't realize that, Zimbabwe is building the first of its kind, a cyber city, right? It's called the Zim Cyber City, where a lot of the aero engineering is needed, because there's a construction of a new airport that's happening in that cyber city. I had the privilege of visiting, and I was even so amazed, and I'm thinking to myself, is this happening in Zimbabwe, let alone in Africa in general? So the topical ones would be your energy, your agriculture, and manufacturing, because we have an abundance of these things. We just do not have the resources in terms of finances, even though we have a lot of natural resources. But when we don't have investment into the country, we are not able to monetize on these resources. And that's why it's so important for us to really understand the relationship between, okay, what type of investments are we looking at, especially when you have an abundance of resources that are available. So I would say the four are the topical ones right now that I'm working on: energy, agriculture, manufacturing, and the aerospace as is.
Oh, that is excellent. I have one last question for you. Uh, Knowing that the perception of Zimbabwe or even Africa in general,
Mhm.
we as Americans, just living in the Western world, we oftentimes hear,
Mhm.
not necessarily the most appealing things as it
Mhm.
relates to Africa because, social media, various news outlets oftentimes paint a very toxic picture of Africa
Mhm.
and something that is clearly not the facts or the truth about the region.
Yes.
So, taking that into consideration and
Mhm.
being an individual from a grassroots perspective,
Mhm.
who knows the country, who's not in the political infrastructure, where
Mhm.
you have to just sell the story. What would you like for people who are listening to really understand
Mhm.
what it is that they would need to know about Zimbabwe to
Mhm.
really give themselves a better understanding about it, but also for business and leisure purposes? What's really one of the greater things or several great things that you'd like for them to know about the
Mhm.
country?
About the country. Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question, Charles.
I know.
And it gets me excited, because you know me, I love talking about Zimbabwe. And I know many Africans as well would love to talk about their countries. But I just want to start off by thanking what CASTNET is doing. CASTNET, and I applaud you for having CASTNET as part of that journey with the African continent, right? Because what has happened through chambers like CASTNET, right? We are able to actually take people to these places, right? And so for myself, being a Zimbabwean American, I have the privilege to be able to talk to my fellow Americans as an American, and I can also present them the Zimbabwe that I know, because there's nothing better than having conversations with people who are actually originally from the places, right? So I take the position that I have in terms of being able to live in both worlds not lightly, because a lot of times, like anything else, when you go all the way to Africa, it's a risk, and a risk that has been created also by technology. Technology has a lot of positives. It has also created a lot of negatives in terms of social media showing these are the parts about Africa. And it's not to say that some of these things are not true, but it does not give a full picture of who we are as a people. And then when I think of Zimbabwe as a country, when I go home and I see how warm people are, how very educated they are, very articulate, and very welcoming, you don't see this a lot in media. And that is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, to talk about and take people on these trips. And that's why, as a company, part of what we do, we don't only just do the business part, but we also want to immerse you into the cultural aspects of Zimbabwe. And so you asked a question about what are the things that people should be excited about to get to Zimbabwe. We are just as modern in many ways, right? Like any other country. Of course, we are behind in terms of technology, but technology has also given an opportunity for readers. If you're a reader, if you're somebody who likes to do your own research. There's a lot of information on the YouTube. On YouTube, there's a lot of information even on if you Google, you'll find a lot of information about different countries. But there's not anything that is as powerful as hearing it from the natives themselves. And so I encourage people to take trips to really get to go to these countries, have that risk-taking mindset, so to speak. So I'm just going to highlight some of my best places when you come to Zimbabwe. If you are not familiar with Zimbabwe, we are right at the bottom of the continent, right? We are landlocked. So we have Zambia, South Africa, Malawi, Mozambique, and we are also very closest to one of the busiest ports in Africa, which is the Beira, which is between Mozambique and of course the ocean, right? And so we are neighbors, and this is literally about a 6-hour drive from the capital city of Harare. So if you are into the trade and commerce, that is where I would talk about in terms of, if you are looking into trading. And we hold the one of the greatest waterfalls in the world. I believe it's put at number 7 is one of the greatest wonders of the world. The Mosia Tunya, that's the real name. And a lot of people know it as Victoria Falls, but we know it, the natives, we know it as Mosia Tunya. And what Mosia Tunya means is the smoke that thunders. And only when you get to experience it, you're going to see why we call it the smoke that thunders. And a lot of people do not know this. We are very into sports. Cricket is one of our major sports, and we've had years where we have dominated in cricket, and also rugby and golfing as well. People are familiar with Nick Price. He is Zimbabwean, right? And recently, we just had our own Minister of Youth and Sports, Kirsty Coventry, as the International Olympic Committee president. And so those are some of the things that, accolades that we have that people don't hear about. And the last thing I also want to share about Zimbabwe is that from the hydroelectric, that's why, the energy piece is so important. So from the hydroelectric space, we hold the largest man-made dam by reservoir and also by a measurement, right, which is the Kariba Dam. So that supports electricity between Zimbabwe and Zambia. So that is why now we have this need to get into the energy space, because of late we've been having what we call load shading, where because of the lower amounts of waters in the Kariba Dam, it means also, generating enough energy for both countries has become a challenge. So sometimes we have to have days where we don't have electricity. Some days, just to make sure that that is fairly shared. So there are many things I can talk about Zimbabwe. Yeah, we definitely have the, I believe, I'm biased here, the best foods, natural foods, organic food. So all these things are opportunities for those people who really want to learn about who we are as a people, and what we have on the ground. That is something that uniquely us as a people in Zimbabwe.
Barbara, that is absolutely fascinating, and I can see the passion in your voice and your expressions as you speak about your country. So that level of excitement is something that every Zimbabwean should be, just thrilled about. And I speak to our audience and those who are listening. If you are an investor, or you are a traveler for leisure, I encourage you to reach out to Barbara and connect with her immediately to start talking about business, to talk to her about Zimbabwe's culture and its leisure, and start the process of really learning about the country firsthand, as opposed to adapting to whatever perceptions have been provided via social media. So, first and foremost, I want to thank you, Barbara, for providing us so much information about yourself, about your projects, about your business, and about your country. And I hope that everyone who's listening gets a chance to connect with Barbara via LinkedIn and various social media outlets that are there. And we look forward to our next discussion. Thank you very much, Barbara, and have a great day.
Thank you. And you too. Thank you so much, Charles. Bye now.
Bye bye now. That was awesome.